Do you need him to change? This episode will illuminate why you feel preoccupied by him and what you can do to get out of the codependency trap. Welcome to Heartbreak to Wholeness, the podcast helping you heal from the mindfuck of narcissistic relationships and move towards the secure, peaceful woman you want to become. I am your host, Brie Walta, relationship clarity coach and EFT certified practitioner. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome back. Today's episode is for anybody who has accidentally ever turned their entire personality into whatever he needs me to be today. You know, when his moods become your weather forecast. If that is you, you may be struggling with codependency. And I am diving into what that means with Cheryl Feidelman, who is a codependency and relationship coach who helps women to reestablish their self-worth by really helping them cultivate a deep sense of self and belonging within their psyche and their spirit and their nervous system. The word codependency might have an overwhelming tone for you. So Cheryl and I are really breaking it down in a way that you can understand, a way that you can feel seen and maybe even a little called out, but really in the best kind of way. We're talking about those moments when you have literally been managing somebody else's life and can't even remember what you want for lunch or your life. So if you've ever found yourself rehearsing conversations, trying to mind read like it's your side hustle, or trying to just keep the peace in a relationship that has zero interest in being peaceful, this episode is going to feel like a giant exhale. From Cheryl and I's conversation today, you are going to gain a clear and compassionate definition of what codependency looks like and how you can actually spot this in real life. You're going to understand how to break this cycle of, I hate you, I'm sorry, please change, and really anchor in self-trust. And you're going to gain an understanding of how empathy differs from codependent overfunctioning in a relationship, which is going to change your life. And remember to stick around to the end of the episode where I will pull an oracle card, and that will offer you a message that you can use this week to stay more conscious in your healing. Okay, let's get into it. Welcome to the podcast, Cheryl. This topic is one that I know the listeners are going to love because the word codependency is everywhere. And I think there can be some stigma around it or some fear around it. So I love your part of your mission is normalizing codependency, which I love. So tell us, what is codependency? How do you define this thing?
The way that I define codependency, and I deliver my work, my ideas, my theories in the most accessible way possible, is anytime we're looking outside of ourselves for reality. Okay. So we're looking at somebody else. What are they thinking? What are they wanting? What do they want from me? Do they like me? Are they upset at me? And so we're looking outside of ourselves for our sense of safety, for our anchoring, for our worth or our value. And we spend more time in our mind thinking about other people and what's happening with them, or replaying conversations, past tripping, future tripping. Codependency is like the antithesis, the opposite of presence. We're in the past, we're in the future. And this is important for those listening, that these are the sort of three locations of thoughts that the way that I look at thoughts is they're either in three locations: you're past tripping, you're future tripping, or you're thinking about somebody else. What they said, what they did, what they want. We're thinking 5-10 steps ahead. Well, I can't say that because if I said that, then they're going to say this and then they're going to be upset. And this is how it's going to go because this is how it went last time. So I'm just not going to say anything. And so we past trip or future trip our desires and our wants, and then we create our own repression. Forget it. I'm just not going to say anything. I'm going to cut myself off. I'm going to cut off communication with them and just do my own thing. So isolation is often a big option for us codependents. But getting back to the definition, it's anytime you're looking for somebody else for your sense of safety, value, or the reality of the moment. And a lot of us are living inside of other people's worlds. Okay, we're focused on what they want first. And then once we figure out what they want, then we find our reality. So we're living in reaction. And because we're living in reaction, it creates this thing that's very common with codependency, which is inferiority, superiority. You're more powerful, or your opinion is stronger, or you express yourself more powerfully. So I can't find my own truth, or I know my own truth, so I'm just going to set it aside to serve yours, just to keep the peace, right? A lot
Yep.
of illusion of keeping the peace, a lot of illusion of martyrdom and codependency. Well, I know everything. I know I can take care of their world so much. And then we're trying to prove our value because we took care of them and they're still mad at us. And so anyway, I could talk about
Yep.
it forever, but that's my definition of it, is looking outside of ourselves for reality.
Which A is exhausting, to your point about like being in the past or future tripping, trying to figure out the 17 steps ahead of what you need to do. So it's exhausting. There's a dissolving of self or a dissolution of self in that experience when you are looking to other people to confirm if you're okay, confirm who you are, confirm that you're doing it right or not right. Right? You're looking for that feedback from them.
Well, it's a disillusion of self. For some of us, there's no self. There
Yeah.
is no self. I learn about yourself and what's happening for you, and then I find who I should be in relationship to your reality, right?
Right.
So a lot of us codependents, we hear these phrases in the healing world like self-love, self-awareness, self-compassion, self-forgiveness. Well, a lot of us codependents are like, that sounds like a great idea, but what if you don't have a self
Yeah.
to put that awareness towards? Like, there is no location over here. I'm
Yeah.
so outside of myself that the only way I can find myself is in reaction or in service to or in support of or acquiescing to somebody else's reality.
Right. So let's bring this tangible. So for the listener, what would be a specific example of how this would play out in a romantic relationship?
How
I
much
know
time?
there's many examples, but what?
Well, this can happen with a boss, a family member, in a romantic relationship. For a lot of us, it happens mostly in a romantic relationship, or it happens the most or more in a romantic relationship, because romantic relationships will highlight all of our unhealed traumas. Romantic relationships will put us back in the household we grew up in, and we're still our mother's daughter or our father's daughter, whoever your main traumatic relationship was, could have been both. And now we're relating to that partner in a regressed way, and we want them to provide the things that in some schools of thought call it our inner child. I call it your traumatic identity. You're wanting them to provide what that little person inside of you didn't get.
Yeah.
And so in order to get that thing, we are conforming ourselves and uh, creating new identities, or codependent masks, as I call them, in order to get the things that we think we need from that person. Okay. So if I don't say what I want, maybe they'll be happy. Or if I agree when I don't actually agree, then maybe we actually can have a conversation. Or if I don't um, be an artist and I do this job, then I can be in this kind of relationship. But if I veer off and say, hey, I'm actually an artist and I want to actually live who I authentically am, maybe I'll lose this job, or maybe I'll lose this relationship, or maybe the person won't like me anymore if I'm actually my true self and I am kind of aligned with my own truth.
Yeah.
And so there's a myriad of ways in which it can show up, but mainly it shows up in when somebody else is steering our reality. And there's just so many ways in which we can become inferior, become smaller, outsource our spirituality. What I mean by that is the other person becomes this deity, this really powerful source. Like, all of a sudden you're dating somebody or you're married to somebody was a complete stranger before you even met them. And we lift them up and give this so much power and control over ourselves. But what's more important than that, is not that we give them so much power. What's more important is that we diminish ourselves.
Yes.
What's more
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. The pedestal example, right? It's like If they are the one that knows the right answer, they know how to do it, they know what's right, they know what we should do, they know who we should be, then we are giving our power to this, like you said, this person who in other terms or worlds would be on an equal plane to us. But
Mhm.
because they hold all of the answers that we seek because we can't find them internally, it
Mhm.
creates this separation of power.
Yeah, it creates a separation of power. And in the conscious codependence process, which is the codependency healing process that I designed, I bring everybody down to in the frequency. There is no inferiority, superiority. It just doesn't exist. And that is among the myriad of lies that codependency brings. This, I'm only going to take up the amount of space that you provide me. So there's so many different ways in which we live in somebody else's world. And then what happens to us? We diminish, we go invisible, we become resentful, we blame it on them. That's the codependency piece. We blame it on them. Well, they're so loud and they're so big and they're so strong and they're so powerful,
Yep.
right? Or they're not going to listen anyway. So why should I say what I want to say? Because they're not going to listen anyway. And then we silence ourselves because of what we think about them, and then we resent them.
And then we get confused on why we're resenting one at one point, and then we're playing the victim at another point, and we move around the rescuer, the victim, and the perpetrator in this cycle, and we're confused as to where to orient ourselves in a relationship because we're just like bouncing around through all of these different characteristics in relation to the other person.
In codependency, we are all three all the time. I'm only rescuing you because I'm a victim to your reality.
Hmm.
Your reality, I have a job to do, I have a responsibility. And this is where there's a line between codependent empathy and empathetic empathy. Because a lot of us codependents are like, well, I'm so empathetic. I feel everything. I feel what they feel. I can imagine what they're going to feel. So I want to save them from what they're going to feel, right? So empathetic empathy is, yeah, you may feel a lot. And then if someone's upset at you, you feel even more. Or maybe you have the experience of you even feel what they actually feel. All of that is beautiful. Codependent empathy is all of that, plus you have a job to do. I feel what they feel, and now I have to save them from it. Or now I feel guilty about it, so I have to change their experience. I'm responsible for their experience. So there's a whole lot of work often in our codependent moments, just a whole bunch of jobs. And that's also another reason why we are not embodied, why we are not aligned with ourselves, because we're spending so much time in service to another person, in service to trying to change their mind, change their feeling. It could also be proving our innocence. It could also be making them dinner when maybe they didn't even ask you to make them dinner, but you just think that that's your job. And if you don't do it, they're going to be mad at you. Whatever it is, we're so in their world. We're
Yep.
not in our own world,
Yeah.
which is, I look at codependency as the most obvious way we demonstrate our unhealed trauma. And so to leave ourselves is a traumatic habit. To focus on somebody else is a traumatic habit. Maybe you
Yeah.
had to focus on your mom's reality or your dad's reality. You had to look outside of yourself for safety. But now it becomes a habit in your adult life. You're still looking outside of yourself for safety.
Yeah. It's one of the patterns that will perpetuate until we find clarity around that pattern and start to shift it. And one thing that I hear a lot from clients is the amount of exhaustion that they're in from being not just in a narcissistic relationship, but being codependent in a narcissistic relationship. It is so exhausting because of what you said. You're putting your entire energy into not just trying to manage your own life, but trying to manage someone else's life. And so they'll come to me and they'll be like, Brie, I don't know if I have the capacity to do this healing work. And what I want the listener to hear is when you can shift away from the responsibility that you feel around someone else's reality, you reclaim so much energy to put towards yourself and your own healing, which is where any sort of movement is going to happen anyway, because nothing really happens from codependency besides us staying perpetually busy on the other person. It's not making them change. It's not changing reality. It's just having a lot of jobs. Like you said, I love that kind of
Yeah.
understanding of it.
Yeah, and you put it really well that when you're no longer taking care of their reality, you have a lot more time, you have a lot more freedom. You also have a lot more vitality, you have a lot more turn on, you have a lot more sensual, sexual turn on. Because when we are taking care of somebody else's reality, what often happens is a mother-child dynamic starts to happen,
Yeah.
okay? Which dissolves polarity. Or it can increase polarity where you have a really, really good sex life with the person. And that's the only time that you're not overly taking care of them. It's the only time where polarity exists. And then you leave the bedroom and you're back to mother child. I think a relatively well adjusted relationship is when there's equanimity in the polarity outside and inside the bedroom, where the
Mm.
communication is at an equal level outside and inside the bedroom.
Yeah.
I have a lot of clients who are like, when we communicate great sexually, but then outside the bedroom, we're like a mess, right? Or vice versa. And so we want to get to the point where who you're bringing to the table is the same person in all categories of your relationship because we shift. I'm a mother here, I'm a sister here, I'm a grandmother here, I'm 12 years old here in this version of my relationship.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And I would imagine that when you can start to level out the codependency, you have more embodiment in yourself and therefore can experience more pleasure and more vitality like you're describing. So tell us why is embodiment so important in the healing process and why are we so disembodied when we are codependent?
That's a good question. We're disembodied because we are in our mind. We're not present. Like I said, we're future tripping, we're past tripping, we're thinking 10 steps ahead about what they need. We're thinking about what we did wrong and how we should have said it and how it could have went, which is what I call a codependent hangover. You're in a conversation, and now after the conversation, you're not in the moment. You're replaying, analyzing, strategizing. We're not in our body. And a lot of my clients who are high performing women, really great analyzers, really great strategists, and that those sort of that sort of cognitive mastery really works for them in certain areas of their life. But when it comes to an emotional relationship, it's destroying their relationship with themselves, which is the number one most important relationship. It's the source of all of your relationships. When you don't have a relationship with yourself, there's going to be disconnection reflected in your other relationships. So if
Yeah.
you're in a romantic relationship and you're not connected to yourself, that is the source of the disconnect with the other person. And that's not to say that the other person isn't sourcing the disconnect as well. It's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We can always find the disconnect with another person inside of us. What am I interpreting? What am I projecting? And not just what are you interpreting or projecting? Which one of those interpretations are you believing? Because in my work, a huge piece of my work is the somatic experiencing practice, where we work on becoming embodied, sitting in the emotions and sensations of a situation, as opposed to believing our thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
We want to practice noticing versus believing the thoughts, because not only can we be codependent onto another person, most importantly, we're codependent onto our own mind.
Mm-hmm.
Believing the thoughts of our inner punisher. We're believing the thoughts about, so, oh, yeah, you're right. I should have said this. Oh, you're right. They are mad at me, or whatever it is that you're interpreting or projecting. You're believing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you are inferior unto the stories of your own mind. Okay. You're loyal unto these stories. You're obedient up to your mind. And so we want to get really clear. What are the thoughts of your traumatic identity, meaning the identity that developed in reaction to your parents' reality? It's not you. It's a traumatic identity. That's the side of you that has developed these codependent habits or behaviors. It's not you. Your codependency is not you. And so we want to get really clear of who's speaking when your mind is going.
Yeah.
Is the voice of your intuition and your true self, or is it your default or your traumatic identity. So this idea of being disembodied has a lot to do with believing your mind.
Yeah. It makes sense. If we are so disconnected from our body, right? We're losing sensation and feedback from what our body's trying to say. And therefore we have to default to the mind. It's like this kind of, I see it as the perpetuating cycle of I live in my mind, therefore I'm not connected to my body, therefore I can't get feedback from the body, therefore I have to be in the mind.
Mm.
And what I love about what you're saying is we have so many places in dysfunctional relationships because codependency is a dysfunctional thing. We have so many places in dysfunctional relationships to take accountability, and the other person can still be held accountable for their dysfunction. So a lot of the women listening are in relationships with narcissistic people. And I'm curious, maybe just in your opinion or in the example of your work, is codependency always, does it always accompany a narcissistic relationship? Is it always intermixed in that experience?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
But I want to offer an additional idea that when we say that people are in relationship to a narcissist, what I want to add is that you are possibly not in relationship with yourself.
Mhm.
Because if we are pointing outward, well, they're a narcissist and they do this and they do that. That is a codependent habit in and of ourselves. When we are more focused on the dysfunction of another person and what's happening with them and how they're messing up the relationship or how they're mean or whatever it is. Because the way that I look at narcissism, and I think that this is distinct from NPD, which is diagnosable narcissistic personality disorder, things that I think that we can generally use narcissism as an adjective is when somebody thinks that their point of view is the only point of view in the room. There is no other truth other than the truth that I'm saying. That we can say maybe is a narcissistic moment or quality. And or they don't understand impact. Like I say something and you go, that hurt my feelings. And I go, no, it should not have hurt your feelings. I didn't do anything. Whatever, it's just, I'm just not getting my impact on you. And so a lot of codependents are like, they don't see me, they don't understand me, they're just doing whatever they want to do. Well, are you noticing yourself? That's the most important place. Why are you focused on whether or not they see you? Are you seeing yourself? If you see yourself and your relationship and your feelings are non-negotiable to you, it does not matter if they are negotiable to somebody else. It just doesn't matter. And so we want to get you to a place where you are crystal clear of your own reality and you're not hoping, praying, and wanting for somebody else to also get your reality.
Right. Right. Yeah. I hear what you're saying in that validation has to come from you first, and that's all that matters is your validation of your feelings and your experience, which means you're leaning on somebody else to agree with you less or to share with you what your reality is. You're not needing that in the same way.
Yeah, you're not needing it. And the part of you that needs it from somebody who may or may not be able to provide that is your traumatic identity. It's still the younger version of you going, Mom, see me, get me. Can you understand what you're doing to me? Can't you get that? That's still the child within you. And so you're in a regressed version of yourself in this relationship with the person you're calling a narcissist. And that's where I often say codependency is blind because you may not be seeing the depth of who they are, what they can provide, what they can't provide, what they can see with their eyes and what they don't have the ability to see. You might not be really seeing who they are and accepting who they are. If I go, I want you to speak German, and you're like, I don't speak German. And I go, I want you to speak German. And you're like, I don't do that. So the part of you that might be wanting something is the part of you that only knows how to long for and not have the longing satisfied by an anchor of safety. It only knows how to run its wheels to long for something.
And the more healing that we do around that traumatized part, the one that's longing, the one that's needing the other person, the more that we can tend to that part of us, the more that we can come into our clear-centered self, our clear-centered knowing, our clear-centered reality. And to your point about being able to then see exactly what type of relationship we might be in. Is this person denying my feelings even though I'm crystal clear about them? Is this person telling me something didn't happen when I know something did happen? And kind of giving us that access back to ourself, our intuition, to then be able to see if the relationship is abusive, to be able to see if the relationship is harmful, or maybe if our needs just aren't being met in the way that we are advocating for once we come into more of that healed place.
Yeah, and I think that that's a really, really beautifully said. And I think another question is this relationship, or if we're is this a relationship abusive or harmful? The way we really can get that is, am I being harmful to myself here, being here? Am I being abusive to myself? Because in codependence, we're always looking at the other person. They are abusive. They are harmful. They're messed up. They're dysfunctional. And so we are constantly pointing to the other person. And that's a very, very almost part of the fundamental definition of codependence. How much are you pointing the finger at somebody else and wanting them to be different?
Yeah. I want to be careful here and just that the listener's not assuming that we're saying that if you are being abused, that is just something that you are doing to yourself.
Mm.
So explain maybe in a different term there of like, because I think I'm tracking what you're saying of if we're thinking that we're being hurt by somebody else, we are likely also hurting ourselves by staying in a relationship of that sort. But how would you maybe clarify that further?
If you think you're being abused, I would suggest being a deep practice of deeply connecting to your own body and your own truth. And if you think you're in an abusive relationship, start to deeply ask yourself, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? What am I wanting? What am I feeling? Did it happen one time and I said, oh, that was just one time? Did it happen more than one time? And if it happened more than one time, what are you doing there? And I'm not insinuating you shouldn't be there. I'm just saying, ask the question.
Mm,
What am I doing here? What's keeping me here?
yeah.
Am I connected to my truth? Am I hoping and praying that they will sort of get it or see the light? Am I outsourcing my experience? How much am I outsourcing my experience? And how much power am I putting in their hands to direct my reality? Well, if I leave, they're going to get mad, or this is what's going to happen. And how much am I future tripping?
Yeah.
This is about having a deep, deep, deep relationship with yourself. And codependency is not that. At least in our codependent moments,
Right.
sometimes they're just moments. We're not in relationship with ourselves. I dated 9 alcoholics in a row, and it took me 9 alcoholics to realize there was a pattern. But anyway, there was one of them that was like really, 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 really abusive. And of course, when I got out of that relationship, it took me a few years to go, what was I doing there? I'm not saying it's my fault that he did abusive things. I just was looking at what was I doing there? Because it happened 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I was still there. So I had to look at what was I doing there? Well, I was doing a lot of proving. I was doing a lot of defending. I was doing a lot of explaining. I was doing a lot of like, no, trying to tell myself that he loved me and he's just a little bit off and he needs healing. Whatever it was, I just had to look at what was I doing? What was I thinking? How was I being? That's a huge part of the healing journey, is to notice our own, because in codependency, we don't notice ourselves. We just notice what they're doing.
Yes.
Become invisible unto ourselves.
Yeah. So I love that as something that the listener can use. It's like, what am I doing here? what is happening right now in my reality? What is happening right now in my relationship? I think that's a really tangible thing that the listener can take with them today.
Yeah. And yes, absolutely. And my free gift for those who are listening is the framework of my work, the 3 codes to clear codependency: the want to be wanted, the need to be needed, and the need to prove oneself. And that PDF will list the common behavioral patterns and developmental roots of each code, and you will be able to reference it. It's a great reference, um, ebook or PDF, whatever you want to call it, of when am I in a codependent? When am I operating from the want to be wanted, or the need to be needed, or the need to prove myself? And so that's a great reference point as well. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll be sure to link that in the show notes. And Cheryl, to finish these episodes, I pull an oracle card to offer just a message that the listener can use to sit with this week. So I have a deck of cards here, and I'll ask you to close your eyes with me. And you and I are just going to tune into the deck. We're going to ask what is the energy, what is the message that wants to come through for the listener today. And I'm starting to shuffle. So whenever you feel like the shuffle's complete, Cheryl, you let me know when to stop.
Okay, stop.
Okay. Soothe is the card that we pulled today.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I'm going to find the message in the book here, and I'll read you what Soothe has to say. Soothe brings you a message of comfort. Allow the Divine Mother to hold you tightly and close to her bosom. She sends a message of reassurance and unconditional love. You are okay. You are safe. You are loved. You may rest here, assured that you are on the right path, deeply cared for and held in love. If you're feeling that low-level buzz of worry, or perhaps you're in a situation that is fully activating your internal alarm systems, know that Soothe comes with an important message to take care of yourself, to reconnect with your soul's purpose and release in the arms of the Divine Mother. Soothe your body with a self-massage. Soothe your worry by asking for the Divine Mother for consolation. Love and care are needed now. Listen to the music you love. Eat a delicious, nourishing meal in noble silence. Wrap yourself in a blanket and give yourself a squeeze. You are loved.
That's so beautiful. Thank
So
you.
good. Yes.
Perfect, because your body, your soul, your spirit is your home.
Yeah. We're
So
just trying to find our way back there, one layer at a time. Yeah. Thank you so much, Cheryl. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you too. Thank you, listeners. Thanks for listening. And remember, your relationship with yourself is the number one most important relationship.
Let's do a quick recap and some takeaways that you can take with you as you move on with your day. Cheryl and I gave you a clear definition of codependency that you can use to actually spot yourself being codependent in real life situations. We gave you an understanding of how you can break that "I hate you, I'm sorry, please change," or the rescuer, the persecutor, and the victim cycle that we get stuck in codependency, and really rebuild that self-trust. And we gave you an understanding of how empathy differs from codependent over-functioning. To absorb all this goodness, you may need to revisit this episode a couple of times. And if you know somebody who struggles with these issues, please send this episode to them. And I want to leave you with another takeaway. So if you enjoyed this episode, you most likely will also enjoy the episode right before it. It's episode 107. It is called Why He Says He'll Change But Never Actually Does, the Narcissistic Lie. So be sure to check out that episode. And until I see you in the next episode, please, please, please remember that you are not alone.